Hello everyone and welcome to my Quickdips session on Azure Resource Manager. So let's think about where we are today. Now if we look at the infrastructure for an Azure solution, we can see that it's typically made up of many components. This could be a virtual machine, virtual network, storage account and gateway. The point is we typically don't view these as individual components. Instead we see them as related and interdependent parts of a single entity. Azure Resource Manager helps alleviate this problem by allowing us to work with resources as a single entity. We can deploy, update, and delete all of the resources for our solution in a single coordinated operation and use templated deployments that will allow us to work in different environments such as testing, staging, and production. Now, in addition to this unified approach, Azure Resource Manager provides streamlined management functionality by allowing security, auditing, and tagging features to the resource after deployment. Approaching it this way provides several benefits. We can deploy, manage, and monitor all of our resources for our solution as a group rather than handling these resources individually. We can repeatedly deploy our solution throughout the development lifecycle, and what's more, have confidence that the resources are deployed in a consistent state. We can use declarative templates to define our deployments. We can define the dependencies between resources so they're deployed in the correct order. We can then apply access control to all services in the resource group because role-based access control is natively integrated into the management platform. What's more, we can apply tags to resources to logically organize them into our subscription. And we can finally clarify billing for the organization by viewing the rolled up cost of the entire group of resources sharing this same tag. A fundamental component of Azure Resource Manager is a resource group. Now, a resource group is simply a container that holds related resources for an application. This can include all of the resources in one go or just the resources that we choose to group together for a particular function. The upshot is it's entirely up to you how you proceed with the collection, and it will largely be down to what makes sense to you, your organization, and the project scope. But there are some important factors to consider when we define our resource group. Firstly, all resources in the group need to share the same lifecycle. And what I mean by that is we will deploy, update, and delete them together. So if one resource, such as a database server, needs to exist on a different deployment cycle, then it should really be placed into an additional resource group. What's more, each resource can only exist in one resource group, and we can add and remove and even move resources to a different resource group at any time. A resource group can contain resources that reside in different regions, and they can be used to scope access control for administrative actions. So finally, a resource group can be linked to a resource in another resource group when two resources must interact with each other, but they don't share the same life cycle. For example, multiple apps connecting to a database. ARM deployments are made possible through the inclusion of resource providers. A resource provider is simply a service that supplies the resources that we need to deploy. For example, if we wanted to encrypt disks, then we would take advantage of the Microsoft Key Vault provider, which would give us vaults for protection and secrets for encryption. It's important to note, though, that most, but not all services support Resource Manager currently, and some only have partial support. But we're working hard to enable ARM for every key service, inclusive of Azure Stack, and the availability of these providers continue to grow. If you would like to know more, then I would guide you to this recent blog post for further investigation. ARM solutions are deployed using simple JavaScript object notation templates that define the definition and configuration of our application. Now, by means of declarative definitions, they enable us to repeatedly deploy applications throughout the app lifecycle and have the confidence to know that these deployments are in a consistent state. Now, within the template, we define the infrastructure for our solution, configuration, and publishing properties, with ARM automatically analyzing dependencies to ensure that these resources are correct and created in the correct order. It's important to note that we don't have to define the entire infrastructure within a single template. And it will often make sense to divide such deployments into a set of target, purpose-specific templates that can be easily reused for different solutions. We can then simply create a master template and link the required templates together to meet our required objective. Templates can also be used for updates to existing infrastructures. For example, we may add a new resource to the app and add configuration rules for the resources that are already deployed. And if a template specifies creating a resource that already exists in the subscription, then I will simply perform an update and delete any resources that are no longer required. We can also inject extensions into the deployment for management services such as desired state configuration, Puppet, or Chef. Okay, so let's jump into a demo and see ARM templates in action. Okay, so if you've been following along with the Cloud and Proud sessions, then you'll be familiar with the portal and some of the components that we already have. Yes, we've built our virtual networks, we've built a number of virtual machines, we've built websites and so on. But what we want to concentrate on today is deploying some resources using some ARM templates. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can do this. We could, of course, we could build our own, but for the sake of saving time, I'm going to deploy some pre-created ones. And there's really a couple of ways that we can retrieve those. So the first way that we can retrieve it is if I go into azure.com and then along the top come into resources, you'll see that we have templates where we can deploy Azure resources through the Azure Resource Manager with community contributed templates. And if I click on templates, then all it does is it takes me into a nice front end for the repository. From here, I can go ahead and I can search for, I don't know, so domain controller. And you'll see that what's going to happen is it's going to change focus, and I can do things like create a new AD domain with 2 domain controllers. Okay, so any resource that I want in there, if I want to go in for Linux, then again, it can change to Red Hat Linux, deploy a VM scale set with Linux, and so on. So that's one way that I can do it. The second way that I can do it is I can go into GitHub. And if you go and search for GitHub Azure Quick Start templates, then there are hundreds of templates that you can download and deploy into your Azure environment. Now you'll notice that you can download these as a zip, but we're going to go ahead and just look at one. Okay, so let's continue to scroll down, and I guess the one that we will use is, let's go for a VM Simple Linux. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on this. And we can see there's a number of files in there. We've got the JSON files in there, and it gives us 2 buttons. We can deploy to Azure, which we'll do in a moment, and we can also visualize. Now, visualize, if I go ahead and click on this, what this is going to do is going to open up a new window and take us into the armviz.io, which is a free tool that we can all access. What this is doing for us is showing us what's going to be part of this ARM template. So we can see that the ARM template is going to go ahead and build us a network. It's going to give us a public IP. It's going to be a network interface card to obviously connect to these resources. And the virtual machine is going to be tying into a storage account. With all of these, we can double click, and from there it will show us the resource properties. We can also download and we can integrate that into our own Visual Studio. So if we look at what's going on here, we've got our parameters, which are defining things like our administrative user, our admin password and DNS prefix and so on. We've then got our variables, and if I continue to scroll down, you can see that we've got some of our resource providers in there too. So you can see that under our resources, we've got storage and we've got network and we've got virtual machines and so on. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back into our GitHub, and what we're going to do is we're going to choose to deploy to Azure. Okay, so that's now opened up into our Azure portal, and you can see that we have some parameters that we need to fill in. So let's start at the top. If I click on top, template, we can see that we can edit the template. And again, it's bringing in that schema that we've just viewed in Visual Studio. Don't need to make any changes to this, so I'm going to jump down to parameters. From here, it wants to know the admin name, so I'm going to go ahead and put in my admin name. I'm going to go ahead and put in my password. And then from there, I need a DNS label prefix. So I need to make sure that this is unique. So I'm going to go ahead and say demo DB and give away my birthday. And I'm then going to choose the version of Ubuntu that I want to deploy. So let's go ahead and say OK. From there, after we've done our parameters, we're going to deploy this to my Microsoft Azure internal consumption account. And for the resource group, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create a new resource group, and I'm going to call this ARM Demo. Okay, I want to put the resource group, I'm going to choose, let's choose Central US. And then finally, I'm going to go in and accept the legal terms. Okay, so from there, we've filled in the parameters that were needed as part of that JSON template, and we're now ready to deploy this into our Azure environment. So I'm going to hit create, and then we'll pause the video, and we'll come back in a little while and we'll see how we get on. Resource Manager provides a tagging feature that enables you to categorize resources according to the requirements for management and billing. With distributed deployments, we can often find that resources may not reside in the same resource group. So by tagging, we can use this to collate the information and reduce unnecessary costs in our subscription. Azure Resource Manager natively integrates open authentication and role-based access control into the management platform, thus allowing us to apply access control to a particular feature, resource group, or subscription while automatically logging user accounts for auditing. The built-in roles include general roles such as owner, reader, and contributor, as well as service-specific roles such as virtual machine contributor, virtual network contributor, and SQL security manager. ARM enables customized policies for managing our resources. These can include scenarios as diverse as enforcing a naming convention or limiting what type of resources can be deployed to enforcing a tag value for departmental billing. We create these policies to help reduce costs and maintain consistency within our subscription. Finally, Resource Manager provides consistency and compatible operations through Azure PowerShell, the command line interface for Macintosh, Linux, and Windows, the Azure portal itself, or REST API. The upshot is you use the interface that works best for you and move quickly between them without confusion. The portal will even display notifications for actions taken outside of its realm. So let's jump back into our demo and see the state of our deployment. And we're back, and we can see that our ARM template has been deployed. And our ARM template has created the resource group ARM demo. And inside there, we've got our virtual machine, our network interface card, our public IP and virtual network and storage account. Now, if we go into all settings, we can see that we've got our audit logs. We've got properties about the resource group and subscription resources we've used. If we click on resources, it's pretty much going to give us a more detailed explanation of these. Resource costs are, well, I'll click on resource costs. It's not going to show you anything, but after it's had time to accumulate, it will give you a breakdown of how much all of the resources in this project are costing the company. If I come down to deployments, I can get information about the template that we deployed. So we can see it was the Microsoft template. And if I come down into here, I can see the inputs that were put in and the operation details. If I come down to alerts, we can set alerts and alert rules based on our resources. I've also got the option to export the template either to PowerShell or save that to a file. Finally, I've got resource management, and we spoke about this in the previous slides. I've got the option to go in and select the users that can access this, so my role-based access control. And you see at the moment, the subscription admins are the owner, but I can go ahead and I can add And then from here, I can go ahead and select the role, and you'll see all of the role types that we have in there: owner, contributor, reader, and then some of the more specific roles that Azure offers. And then from there, we could go ahead and select the users. If I come back, I also have the option to go in and select a tag. So if I click on tag, okay, I can go in and add a tag and add a value and then save it to this resource group or individual resource. And as we said in the slides, what that allows you to do is it allows you to group things together for the purposes of login and billing. Okay, let's just click on one of the resources then. So if I go into my Ubuntu VM, then what that's going to do is it's now going to break down into that resource. And from there, just like we would have seen in previous videos, it's going to allow me to go in, it's going to allow me to set up boot diagnostics, check the health of this machine, reset the password, redeploy if need be, set up troubleshooters and new support requests. I can go down and I can look at the properties of the machine, the disks, the network, availability sets, and so on. If I go into my network interfaces, from here, I can see I've got my NIC and I can choose my public and my private addresses in there too. So if I add a tool like Putty, then what I could do is I could create an SS shell connection into this and I'll be able to access that machine. Now, finally, at the end of the project, when we no longer have a need for this resource, we can now delete it in one go. I mean, gone are the days where you'd have to go in and delete these individually. What we can now do from the resource group itself is hit delete. From there, we're going to select the name. I'm just going to copy this and paste in. And it says, warning, deleting the resource group is irreversible. The action you're about to do can't be undone. Going further will delete this resource group and all the resources in it permanently. So again, we've put the name in to verify that we want to delete this and no mistakes can be made. From there, I'm going to hit delete. And we can see that that's now been submitted and we are deleting the resource group. I'd like to thank you for your time today and look forward to seeing you on the next Quickdip session.